Brian Zotter, 20 years experience software engineering. Last 12 of those was building and scaling engineering teams. Most notably, I was VP of engineering at Salesforce for about 5 years, and most recently, VP of engineering at Medium. I'm currently co-founder and CTO of Cacheflow, and Cacheflow is building a buy now, pay later solution for B2B SaaS. I was at Medium for 4 years. When I joined, the engineering team was about 35, and the entire company a little more than double that. Over the last 4 years, we grew the product development team to about 120, and the entire company was just over 200. The first thing we did was get a clear understanding of the work that needs to be done. So that's working with product and the rest of the executive team to build out the roadmap and goals for the next year with a clear focus on the next couple of quarters. Then it's me working with the engineering leaders to take a look at the current team to assess the talent experience we have now and identify any gaps we need to hire for. We use Google Sheets for looking at everyone's level and skills, and we would take a look to see if we have the right person in the right role. We also use Miro to collaborate on the org structure and planning we need to do. This allows us to see teams and groups and who is responsible for what. So we were mapping teams to areas of responsibilities. And in this exercise, we would identify team gaps or whole area or even group gaps. And this would start to form our hiring plan. As you can imagine, this is a very iterative process that was constantly being updated. It was difficult to keep everyone aligned and up to date on the latest state of this planning. So we were constantly thinking about how to stay ahead of any changes and the communication needed to roll out any of these changes, because we didn't want to take people by surprise. When using this Miro board, it would be totally open. So it didn't have any access control. So we'd be in there making our changes, going through different scenarios. And I remember one time someone came in there where we were deciding on maybe we should move this team to another group. They saw this change. They obviously got very upset. And then it cost a lot of time downstream explaining how this was just a scenario and what was the thought process behind that. During COVID, this problem became much worse because we're all working remotely. We were using these tools that weren't notifying people when we were making changes, or we'd even want to notify we were making changes. If someone got in there and saw something they weren't supposed to see, it just wastes a lot of my time going and have to explain every single scenario that we're thinking about making, every single change that we might or might not make. So it's a total waste of time. So we have a good sense of the roadmap that we need to achieve, the goals that we need to achieve for the company. And now we've taken an assessment of the current team, we've identified any gaps, and we're doing this down to the team level because the manager knows their team best. They know the skills of the team, they know the experience, they know the level of each of the engineers, they know the work that needs to be done, and they know the career development opportunities that engineers on their team might want. But this is just at the team level. And so they have identified gaps, and now we have resource requests for that particular team. Now, every single engineering manager has their own spreadsheet. That gets rolled up to a group level or a director level spreadsheet. And then for my view is an entire org-wide spreadsheet. And you can see the problem with this right away in that the managers have only visibility into their particular team, directors only in their area. And so if I'm looking at the org from the top view and making changes, then it only gets reflected in my spreadsheet, and it takes time for it to flow down into the rest of the spreadsheets. It's a very manual process. It's a copy and paste exercise, prone for error, because we're dealing with probably about this time 15 different spreadsheets for each individual manager that constantly needed to be in sync. things really start to break down when we use this for levels and compensation. You can quickly see how having all this information, all these different spreadsheets, is just a recipe for disaster. One wrong access can eat up a lot of time explaining why this person's budget is less than that person's budget, or why this person is getting paid differently than this. There's great reasons for all of this, but spreadsheets lack context. You just see the data that's in there at a cell at a particular time. You don't see how it got there, why it got there. Now that we have a hiring plan, how do we hire all these people? And one way to do it is to have each manager be responsible for hiring for their team. But that's a lot of overhead for that one manager. And what I found best is to have a common pipeline for the common roles that need to be hired, say software engineer. Many teams are going to be hiring for a senior software engineer, maybe full stack. And so you have one pipeline that could fill 4 or 5 different teams, say. So as people are coming into that pipeline, based on their specific skills and experience and their goals, based on the teams, you can make last minute changes and assign someone to the best team at that point in time. And this also considers the current people on the team. Maybe they have different career aspirations, they want to switch teams. And so we're always considering that. So that's why I like the one pipeline to many teams model. The biggest challenge with budgets is that it's a once-in-time, top-down view of the annual budget, which is important, but it doesn't accurately reflect what needs to be done in a world where things are changing every day. We would go through our exercise, we would try to imagine all the things that we need, resources, services, to meet the roadmap and meet the goals for the year. We do that exercise, and it kind of gets stamped in January, say, and as we all know, that quickly gets out of date because priorities are changing, and we need to iterate. And we need to know how much money we're spending, but it shouldn't dictate the plan. The plan should really come from the team and at the lowest level possible, because they're on the ground, they know exactly what they need, and it should roll up. Now, it's my job as an engineering leader to make sure that we're not overspending in this particular area and we're not going too far away from the current budget unless we need to. And if we need to, it's my job then to explain why there's such a change from the budget we set maybe 6 months ago. Where we got to with the finance team is eventually they just gave me dollars because I was always changing stuff. Where we would do these weekly syncs or monthly syncs, and we would look at the headcount, and they would be like, well, you wanted to hire a principal engineer for this team and a junior engineer for this team. And that would add up to a certain amount. But priorities changed, and I was able to take that same money, that same sum of money, and maybe get 3 engineers for this other team when it became a higher priority. So the interface became dollars very quickly because there was just a lot of back and forth trying to take this headcount that we hired and move it and reconcile it back into the plan. I believe headcount planning should be agile. So that means we're always making changes, and we're making changes across the entire organization. All the teams are changing things all the time. But what is challenging is making sure finance has all the up-to-date information on any of these changes. So some of the managers would Slack it to me, and then I had to remember to update finance, or someone would send an email, or someone would update a spreadsheet somewhere. There was really no standardized way with notifications and approvals for any of these changes. So it took a lot of my time at the end of the month when we're looking at the big spreadsheets that finance has to kind of say, okay, these dollars went here and these dollars went there. and here's our gaps. And then again, it was my job to take that back to the team to say like where we are in the budget and what needs to happen next. As we're doing our development and making progress on our hiring plan, it was critical that we stayed in sync with the recruiting team. And so what we did was we had weekly meetings to get as best a view as we could on each of the roles that we need to fill, where we are with them, and when is the likely date that they would be filled. Because again, of course, it's very important to hit these hiring goals to meet our company goals. Frankly, it was very challenging to get the information that I needed all in one place because there was many different reports in our ATS system. There was other spreadsheets that we had to go to understand pipeline numbers. And it was just difficult to get an up-to-date view on what was going on. To make sure we hit our hiring goals, it's critical that I was in sync with the recruiting team. But it was still challenging to pull different reports from the ATS system. Things weren't updated, managers didn't put in their feedback in time. Recruiting wasn't notified of org changes that we've made because they weren't notified of the other spreadsheets that we have on the hiring plan. So it's this constant trying to keep everyone in sync on the current roles that we have out, how they're doing, what the pipeline looks like, and the changes that are coming up because we're hiring for new teams, or someone might have left and we need to backfill this particular person, or this person switched teams and now we have to open up a new role, or we're switching this headcount from this team to this team because someone wanted to change teams. The best thing that I found is, a weekly sync with the head of recruiting to make sure that we're in sync. And even once a week is not fast enough because we're moving super fast and things are changing every day. We also have attrition to worry about. So someone might leave or we might have to manage someone out. And now we have to, again, update everyone on the new plan, the new hiring plan, and where this person goes. And I always imagine that there should just be one tool where I can go in and everyone who I'm dependent on to help me with this can go in and see the state of the org. And so they can see the changes, they get notified of any of these changes, someone leaves, someone switched teams, someone got a promotion, they're notified, they're kept in sync, and they can react accordingly. So what would be perfect is one single source of truth with all the headcount, all the open roles, all the org planning, with approvals, access controls, and notifications. My co-founder and I were really thinking about how we build the company, right? It's just me now hiring, but we're all remote and we're living in this post-COVID world. And so the way that we work is obviously going to be different. So we're really focused on, number one is values, really the values that we want to have at an early stage company to work in this new environment. We're being very intentional on how we plan the org, how we screen and test for those values to bring on these people. And we're hiring at getcacheflow.com/jobs. In a team of 120, it was very challenging to make these sort of org design decisions because the data was scattered everywhere. I had roadmap planning in one tool, I had headcount planning in a spreadsheet over here, I had team and group assignment in a Miro, I had level and compensation data in another spreadsheet, I had the manager's assessment in another spreadsheet, we had performance reviews in another tool. So it was extremely challenging to take a look at a particular individual or a team and say, okay, this person is the best fit for this team, or this person deserves a promotion, or this person we might want to manage out or put on a plan or get some extra training for. And the challenge is that I'm always getting out-of-date information and needed to be very reactive. So the worst scenario is someone leaves because we didn't see the signs quick enough to understand that they were a flight risk. There needs to be a single source for all this information, so the leaders in the organization, as well as me, can make these decisions in real time.